What's going on, Dolphin fans? It is your boy Dillon, and I got some updates for you. The Dolphins have made some more roster moves. I'm gonna be honest and upfront with you. It seems to be on par with how they normally do things, but they got rid of two guys that you would think would be on the roster going forward, right? Two guys from last year that you would think, at the very least, would have a shot to be in training camp. I mean, I know that they have to trim down to 80, but these are, a couple defensive players that at the very, very least, you would have thought, and these are guys that they brought in, right, last year, right, because they cleared the entire roster, and look, I mean, the list of failed evaluations that they've done on players is significantly long at this point, and certainly far longer than the players that they have had proven success with, and even shorter or even longer than the list of guys that they could, hopefully have success with going forward in the future. And these are two guys that could have been in the lineup for the Dolphins going forward, but they decided to get rid of them. So who are they? The Dolphins waived two part-time defensive starters as teams trim rosters leading up to the August deadline. The Miami Dolphins continued to do some summer cleaning to their roster on Sunday on the heels of the club waiving receiver Ricardo Lewis and quarterback Jake Rudock on Saturday. Interesting. I didn't even know that they released those guys. I hadn't even gotten those updates. So Ricardo Lewis, a wide receiver, he was okay, I think it was another guy that they brought in, if I'm not mistaken. Jake Rudock, he was there. He's been there for, I think he was brought in maybe Gase's last season. That's not really surprising since we have Ryan Fitzpatrick, Tua, and Josh Rosen. Really not surprising there. We don't need all those quarterbacks. And they're all, expected to be around, I'm thinking. I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, those two are not terribly surprising and not really that big of a deal. So those are kind of whatever. But the defensive players are a bit bigger. This time around, it was a couple of defensive players getting the axe as the team announced its waived defensive end Avery Moss and linebacker Trent Harris. Moving on from Moss and Harris are of particular note due to their contributions to the club last season. In his 11 games played in 2019, Moss received the starting nod in 8. He finished with 25 total tackles and a forced fumble. Harris started in 3 of his 11 games played and finished his season with 22 tackles, a forced fumble, and 1.5 sacks. Both players played less than 35% of the defensive snaps for the season, so they were true rotational pieces, but nevertheless were given a handful of starts. But that's what I'm talking about. They actually played pretty significant roles on the team last year. And so why would you just decide to, those are at least pieces you can work with, right? So why would you just decide to, get rid of them? I understand they got to clear the rosters a bit, but, get rid of some of the other just, unknown, undrafted, whatever, nobodies, or some of these fucking guys that you're bringing in that have, they've been in the league for a few years and haven't performed, or they have proven track records, or whatever, even the tight end. I had some Bears fans getting into my comments about the tight end we just picked up from them, and they keep saying that, or it was just 2 of them, but they said that they fleeced us, that they got the better deal there, that he's oft injured and that he doesn't really do much. I mean, he's been in the league 3 years now and doesn't have, a very solid stat line. So, I mean, but they keep doing these things. I don't understand. They keep getting guys that are just nobodies, career backups, have been in the league for a few years and just jumped around teams, practice squad guys. They keep trying to build a team out of nobodies, or a lot of guys that are injured, right? Or, with the example of the guys that they brought in the offseason, guys like that are just, they're overpaying them, right? So they decide to take guys who did reasonably well and then make it, pay them like they're superstars. So they just make all kinds of weird, questionable decisions, and to me, I can't see any real discernible like battle plan on how they're building this team other than Tua's the guy at quarterback. That seems like the only like solid thing. Tua at some point, whether it be game 1 or sometime this season or next year, he's their quarterback. That's like the number one thing that they care about. And then like the only other thing really is that they're going to have some weird, like, I guess they call it Frankenstein defense, where they're just going to have like this weird mesh of random fucking guys that they just throw into this fucking, like, you know, pot and mix them all together, and whatever the fuck happens, I guess. I don't know. Like, it doesn't fucking make any goddamn sense to me. I don't know. But whatever. We'll see what happens. The decision to waive these two could partially be due to Miami, like every other club, needing to trim down its roster to 80 players by the newly agreed upon August 16th deadline. But there were so many other guys that they could have gotten rid of than 2 guys that you brought in last season, performed reasonably well for you on a shit-ass fucking team, turned out to be guys you think would be holdovers, at the very least would be able to make it into training camp, and then you get rid of them. Okay. Like, it blows my mind. Anyway, teams are allowed to start training camp with the traditional 90-man rosters, but must get them at or below that number by mid-August. It seems like the Dolphins may simply be trying to get ahead of the curve. With these moves, Miami currently has 83 players on the roster, which does not include lineman Durval Quiros Nito, who the team has a roster exemption for. That means 3 more shoes need to drop before reaching the magic number of 80, but the Dolphins, who are currently looking at 9 undrafted rookies coming to camp, have plenty of time to make those decisions. Also, let's note though that why would you need to get ahead of the curve, right? At least fucking, because you have until the middle of August. That means you're gonna get, right, training camp, all the veterans come to camp in 2 days. So that means you could at least get a couple weeks with those guys to see, you know, who actually, you know, is panning out better in the first couple weeks of practices, right? And you know, whatever, conditioning, it's really conditioning. I mean, at least, like, it just, the timing doesn't make sense. They still, none of it makes sense. Because they don't have to even get rid of those guys yet. They have until the middle of August to have to trim down to 80. And if they decided to do some kind of split squad fucking thing, then they could have 90 still. So it just, none of it makes any fucking sense, dude. The brass that runs the Dolphins right now, and it blows my mind even more that Dolphins fans, like, look at the shit that they do and somehow think that there's gonna be a gelling, that they're gonna be able to, like, put this together. I mean, maybe. Look, again, it's not set in stone. So far, they've proven me right on almost all of the things that I've said going into their first year and a half now under this fucking power structure with Stephen Ross down to Flores and, you know, Marvin Allen, Reggie McKenzie, and Chris Greer there in the middle at the front office area, right? But, like, I mean, it just, I don't know, dude. Again, they can prove me wrong. It just, the data does not, especially with the way that this year's turning out, there's no way they're going to develop these guys. And it's like, even if games are played, I can't fathom how anybody thinks this team is going to even be close to good. Like, it's just not reasonable because they're missing, it's just not reasonable. It would be the biggest miracle and biggest shock if they could fucking, you know, outperform almost every other team that is far more established than they are, right? Because every team has to deal with the fact that the offseason programs are all fucked up. Every team's going to have to deal with, they're going to have some rookies that are going to be, you know, way behind the curve because of the offseason program being fucked up, et cetera, right? That's reason, but not every team is comprised of entirely new fuckers, young, inexperienced players for the vast majority of the team, minus, you know, the handful of overpaid guys that they have, with an entirely new coaching staff pretty much and new playbooks. The entire roster is almost new, right? Like, other teams don't have to deal with all the same things that the Dolphins have to deal with because of their own fucking choices. Anyway, it's whatever. As for who will likely take the place of Harris and Moss, the Dolphins spent a ton of money in draft capital on the defensive side of the ball and would likely be much improved from a unit that was dead last in NFL and DVOA in 2019. Okay, bro, like, people say that on paper because they did all kinds of, like, superficially flashy things. Ooh, they got Tua, even though he's massively injured and probably won't have, or is very injury prone and probably won't have an offensive line in front of him for the near future. Okay. And then we'll likely get hurt again. Whatever, dude. As it relates to Moss, Miami signed linebacker Kyle Van Noy to a $51 million deal at the start of free agency, which will likely slot him on the edge. The Dolphins also drafted Curtis Weaver in the 5th round of the 2020 NFL Draft out of Boise State, who could back up Van Noy. Harris saw most of his starting time towards the end of the year and will likely be replaced rather easily with Miami's reshuffling on defense, especially with the addition of linebacker Landon Roberts. Yeah, look, I mean, they did a bunch of things, but there's absolutely no guarantee whatsoever that any of it's going to fucking work out. And from my perspective, my evaluation of it and all of the decisions that they've made and everything that they've done to this point, the players that they've let go, the players that they brought in, their terrible track record to this point at player evaluation, both in free agency and, you know, waiver wire claims and picking people up from other leagues, the AAF, right? None of the players that they brought over from the AAF panned out. Not a single one of them. They brought over 8 guys. Not a single one of them made the team. Right? Okay. But look at the things that the players that they got rid of are doing. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I mean, anyway. You guys know how I feel about it. And look, again, I'll end it like this. I say this every time. I hope I'm wrong. I hope they prove me wrong, but they have to. Hashtag fucking prove it, because otherwise, there's only one of 2 ways this goes. Either they prove me wrong, they turn the team around, they actually start building something, get to the point where they start having success and then maintaining that success, which means that they continue to get to the playoffs year after year after year. You know, their star quarterback doesn't get fucking mauled and injured and does what he is expected to do, etc., etc. Or it doesn't work out, and then at best we end up back in the middle of the fucking bunch at mediocre, if not actual dog shit, like we were last year, and frankly will likely be again this year, if there is a season to even be played. And then, again, at best, we're just back where we were. So and then in which case I will be proven right, because then eventually Brian Flores will get scapegoated and fired, and we will then again hit the reset button. Because unless we reach that level of championship potential where and especially with Tom Brady not being in the division anymore, if we're not competing for division championships in the playoffs consistently within the next 2 to 3 years, I virtually guarantee you that Brian Flores will get scapegoated, and then we will hit the reset button again. So, okay, I don't know how people get the confidence, and with what we have, the data that we have, and thinking that in the next 2 to 3 years, we are going to be reaching that chance. I mean, I know, dude, it's like everybody puts their eggs in the Tua basket and shit. And it's like, but they don't care to even think about all the things, all of the myriad of factors that surround him, you know, that are going to affect it and likely cause it not to work out as everybody plans. Anyway, I'm gonna get up out of here, because you guys know I could just fucking talk about this all day, but I'm not gonna. I'm a bounce. But I do hope you guys appreciate my perspective. If you do, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you hit the bell if you want to get the alerts. Share my channel and videos with your friends and family. Leave your questions, comments, and concerns down in the comment section. And of course, as always, make sure you follow me on Twitter at Dillon Tartaro. And with that, I am out. I'll see y'all soon. Phins up.